Well, when I was born on a border where from my window I could see the border, not to cross, because on the other side there were Germans. But they had the same name as we had,
Yes.
but they spoke the same language.
Yes.
And I said, well, how crazy can we be to have this border? This border, they should disappear. And you know, it has disappeared.
It has disappeared.
And all the borders in Europe have disappeared.
Yes.
Which is something really miraculous, but nobody complained. And I had my whole philosophy was from when I was a child. I said, this planet is so beautiful, nature is so beautiful, that there should not be any wars. How can there be any wars? And there was an elderly man called Robert Schuman, who became the minister of many things in France, and he created a united Europe.
With your help.
Uh-huh. And when I met him once, I asked him, I said, what made you do what you did? Namely, you got rid of 25 borders in Europe. And you know what he told me? He had the same story as mine. He said, I was born at a place where Luxembourg, Germany, and France got together. Mm-hmm. And I was given one Christmas a new bicycle. And wherever I went with my bicycle, I was stopped because they had a border. And I swore that time that if in my life I will have the opportunity of suppressing these borders, I will do it. And he said, that's exactly what I did. I have suppressed the borders in Europe. And Europe is much happier as a result of that.
Oh, yes.
But it was his, it is like my own reason was, life is so beautiful. I always said as a kid, life is divine. I looked at the sky. I went to meetings to hear about the beautiful life we should have on this planet. And I wished, I prayed that all my life I would be able to do something for a very happy, peaceful world. And you know, it became a reality.
And
I entered the UN coming from a very poor little village. I was in the UN. I became an assistant secretary general in the UN. I was able to do so many things which are almost inconceivable. And now I'm retired. I'm retired already almost 20 years. And every day I do something. During the night, I woke up at 4 o'clock and I wrote a letter to the Secretary General of the UN. Here is something which you should do. And I do it with nations too. So that I have now written already, my wife, when I married Barbara, she said, you know, you have so many good ideas, you should write them down. And I never wrote them down. And since I did this, I have now written more than 7,000 ideas. And if I want to have a letter to a president which deals with a particular subject, the computer gives me pages and pages, and I send them the pages. So I select some from there. And I will never give up. During the last night, for example, I woke up at one point and I wrote a letter to the Secretary General, where the Secretary General now has announced that there will be a meeting about the development of happiness and peace in all the countries of the world. And I wrote to him and I said, look, I have convened a World Conference on happiness and peace already in 1971.
And you know what?
He didn't remember.
You know what? On the first day of that meeting, you should begin it by playing on your harmonica.
Oh, sure.
Ode to Joy by Beethoven, right?
The Ode to Joy, yes. Because most of the time, people who heard me speak years ago, they said, "Oh, Mr. Muller, we heard you speak. It was wonderful. We had this conference on top of the mountain in South America, and it was so intelligent, so great." And I said, "Do you remember something? One particular item?" "No." "Oh, you don't?" "No." And then at one point, a lady jumped up. "I know." "What do you know?" "I know your harmonica." And since that time, I have my harmonica in my pocket. And whenever people get involved in something and it has no result, at the end of it, I said, "You know, we didn't do much in our conference, but let me play the harmonica and hope that we will have a beautiful, better land." But it's working, you know. There's more and more closer cooperation between the countries. Of course, it's difficult because they were all born at the time when the animals were born, and they went around and settled down. So they had to create a language, they had to create a god or a religion, and they were living. There are 2,000 schemes like this lived in isolation or in wars. They make wars against the next one if the next one was a little bit too dangerous. And now suddenly they are all brought together, and to get these languages and these religions together is not easy at all.
The religions are the big problem.
Yes, they are the most difficult to get together because it's all in the name of God and it's all a permanent truth.
And the trouble is, they are all religions that originated in the Dark Ages and are on the wrong track.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to correct the religion to speed things up.
They're the last ones to begin to talk to each other and to find a solution. That is absolutely correct.
That's right.
But you wanted me to say something about joy?
Joy and how that helps to bring peace.
Well, it's very, very important. This is something which I have noticed in the United Nations. It is when you have a meeting of the General Assembly, you have these men mostly who are very intellectual. They have many small ideas, big ideas, all kinds of things. And sometimes it becomes to a point that they begin to oppose each other and really to have a mess in the United Nations. And I have taken it as a rule to say that in every United Nations meeting there should be a girl or a woman or a gentleman who would start with, at one point, with a joy or with a happiness. I would like to have happiness be something absolutely essential for the whole world and not in relay. Because when you are happy, then you are fully operating. And it's happening. You have more and more happiness in meetings around the world. And not only happiness, what is even as important as happiness is smile. And it's smiling is the great thing of women. So when you have women who smile, it creates a different atmosphere. So that we have to elevate our efforts to have peace with the concept of happiness. I have induced my wife, who never wrote a book, to write a book on happiness. And she's now quite happy and it works on it. And we ought to have a whole literature of happiness. And in most governments, it's put on the side, you know, maybe a little bit no. I think the head of a country should make a speech at the end of the year and speaking about the happiness of the people. By the way, you had recently an example that made quite some noise in the world. It is when they had a meeting of heads of states and they wanted them to have a plan for the future. There was the president of Bhutan who said, "You want me to give you the extent of the economic, whatever is this, complicated things? I don't know what it is, and I don't want to hear of it. What I expect from my people is to give them happiness." And it went all over the world. The intelligent guys, you know, with their brains, they didn't know what to think. This man was right. If my people are happy, then that means that I'm well organizing my country, you know. And not to find out if economically I have the percentage which is declared to be absolutely indispensable if you want to have a good country. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to have the people to be happy. And we ought, I'm recommending very, very strongly that we should, in the whole system of the world, we should give a very big opening to happiness, to smiles, to love, to good things that happen. People take an initiative which might be wonderful, the wonder. And we should not limit everything to economics and to politics and so on. You know, there's also, I have something which is recent, which happened to me. I don't remember exactly where, but there was a lady who in the atmosphere, in the outside of the place, she said, "Oh, Mr. Muller, you cannot imagine how I liked the great world conference which you had on our mountain, the Machu Picchu or something like this. It was incredible. And the speech which you delivered and the other speeches, they were absolutely marvelous." And then I said to her, "Well, that's very good news. I'm happy to hear it. Do you remember something from what was said there?" She made a face. And she said, "No, I don't remember anything." "What do you mean? You do not remember any proposal or idea which was given there?" And she said, "Well, I'm sorry to say, but I must confess, I don't remember anything." And then suddenly her face bloomed and she says, "Yes, I remember something." And I said, "Well, I'm glad. I remember when you played the harmonica." And since that time, that was about 2 or 3 years ago, I have always my harmonica in my pocket. And even in a government meeting or in the General Assembly of the UN, I will never make a speech without at the end having the harmonica. And they're quite happy with it. Why should we always do it with the brain only? We should do it with the heart.
That's it. The harmonica is for the harmony of the heart.
Well, it's the heart, exactly. And the heart is not far from the brain, you know. We should always use the heart. The brain should ask the heart, "What do you think of that?" And the heart would put something into what the brain has calculated. The Western world is all very strongly on the brain. And that is not good. The harmonica, which children will have, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Ode To Joy of Beethoven on 10 holes. Do you think you can do it?
Oh,
okay.
not me.
Okay? Good. You even can good. I can play harmonica and you can dance it. Excellent. That's
I'll
a good
be
combination.
I'll be the dancing bear, right?
Oh, voila. Oh my.